It all started with one blurry photo, a single, grainy snapshot that spread across the internet like wildfire. Mendeecees Harris stepping out of a sleek black SUV with a woman no one could recognize. The image wasn't clear, but the body language said enough. The hand on the small of her back, the quick glance over the shoulder. And by morning, social media had already declared its verdict. Mendeecees was caught. 4 days, fans flooded the timeline with theories. Some claimed it was an old picture. Others insisted they had seen the mystery woman before on a red carpet, at a private event, or maybe lurking in the background of one of Yandy Smith's old Instagram stories. The internet doesn't sleep, and within hours, amateur detectives had zoomed in, enhanced, and dissected every pixel, desperate to uncover the truth. But nothing could have prepared them for what came next. Because when Yandy finally broke her silence, she didn't deny, she didn't defend, she didn't even name names. She simply went live, looking exhausted and hollow-eyed, and said 4 words that sent shockwaves through the love and hip-hop world. "I'm done. For real." That moment changed everything. Fans who once worshipped their picture-perfect family were suddenly split down the middle. Some called Yandy a queen for walking away. Others begged her to reconsider, saying no one truly knew what happened behind closed doors. But behind those doors, things had already fallen apart long before the cameras ever caught on. Sources close to the couple whispered about late-night arguments, suspicious texts, and Yandy's growing frustration over what she called emotional betrayal. She had stood by Mendeecees through prison, through scandal, through every headline that tried to break them. But this time, it wasn't just a rumor. This time, she said, it was proof. And yet, even as the internet tore them apart, Mendeecees stayed silent. No interviews, no posts, no denials. Just a single cryptic caption on his story. "People see what they want to see." That one line only deepened the mystery. Who was the woman? Was it an innocent meeting blown out of proportion, or the final straw in a love story that had already been unraveling behind the scenes? Tonight, we're diving deep into the truth behind that viral photo, the secret messages, and the emotional breakdown that followed. From Yandy's explosive confession to Mendeecees' late-night confrontation that no one saw coming. This is the scandal shaking the entire love and hip-hop empire. Grab your popcorn, because what started as a casual sighting is about to explode into one of the most dramatic relationship meltdowns reality TV has ever seen. This isn't just another tabloid headline, this is the unraveling of a power couple we thought could survive anything. But as you're about to find out, love, loyalty, and fame don't always mix. And sometimes, the real drama begins when the cameras stop rolling. The night after Yandy's live went viral, everything changed. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages from friends, castmates, even producers who wanted her reaction for the next season. But she stayed quiet. She locked herself in her apartment, turned off the lights, and scrolled through the endless storm of comments. Fans were tagging her in screenshots, memes, threads, each one claiming to know the truth. Yandy deserves better. He's been playing her for years. Men like Mendeecees never change. But the one that hurt the most was a single comment that read, "You built him, and he still broke you." Outside, paparazzi waited near the gate. Neighbors whispered as camera flashes lit up the night. Inside, Yandy sat on the edge of her bed, clutching her phone, replaying the same photo over and over. That blurred image of Mendeecees with the mystery woman had burned itself into her mind. She zoomed in, hoping to find something that would make sense of it. Maybe it was an old picture. Maybe it was someone else. But deep down, she already knew. Meanwhile, Mendeecees was across town, at a quiet restaurant in Harlem, sitting in the back booth with the same woman from the photo. She wore a long beige coat, her nails painted deep red, her voice low but confident. "You know they already talking, right?" she said, sipping her drink. "People think I'm your new girl." Mendeecees leaned back, shaking his head. "Let them talk. They don't know nothing." But his eyes betrayed him, nervous, unfocused, like a man caught between guilt and denial. By morning, the story had made headlines. Gossip blogs plastered his name next to words like cheating scandal and secret affair. One outlet even claimed the woman worked in the same circle as Yandy, hinting at betrayal from within. Fans flooded his DMs, demanding answers. He didn't respond to a single one. Instead, he posted a photo of his kids with the caption, "Family over everything." But the internet wasn't buying it. The comments were brutal. "Family? Then why you out with another woman? Yandy held you down in prison, and this how you repay her? Men like you don't deserve loyalty." That same day, Erica Mena was spotted commenting on a shady post that read, "Karma always circles back." Fans instantly connected it to Yandy and Mendeecees. The love and hip-hop circle was buzzing, with everyone picking sides. Rich Dollaz posted a cryptic tweet saying, Loyalty gets tested when fame gets too loud. It was chaos, one that producers couldn't ignore. Rumor has it, Mona Scott Young herself called Yandy that evening. She wanted her on camera, wanted her version before the blogs twisted it beyond repair. But Yandy refused. "This isn't for TV," she told her through tears. "This is my real life." Mona tried convincing her it could be a moment of empowerment, a storyline about strength and independence. Yandy just hung up. She wasn't ready to perform pain. Not this time. Meanwhile, Mendeecees was cornered by his own circle. His cousin, Sean, called him out bluntly. "Bro, tell me that ain't true. Tell me that picture ain't what it looks like." Mendeecees sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's not what people think. She's just a friend. We were talking about business." Sean didn't buy it. Business? At midnight? In the back of a car? "Come on, man." Mendeecees snapped back. "You think I'd risk everything for some random woman?" Sean leaned forward, his tone cold. "You already did." The conversation ended with silence, the kind that carries more truth than words ever could. Back at home, Yandy finally broke down. She opened her notes app and began typing everything she never said out loud. "I loved you enough to stay through your darkest days. I built you when the world forgot your name. I believed in you when I didn't even believe in myself. And now, you give me this." Tears hit the screen as she kept typing. "You said loyalty was forever. I guess forever has an expiration date." Later that night, she posted a photo, just her hand holding a glass of wine. No caption. Within minutes, the internet erupted. Thousands of comments poured in. "Queen energy. She's done for real this time. We're proud of you, Yandy." Others begged her to forgive him, saying love isn't perfect, that maybe it was all a misunderstanding. But Yandy had already made her decision. She was done pretending everything was fine. That weekend, Mendeecees showed up at the house, unannounced. The cameras weren't rolling, but the tension was thick enough to cut through. She didn't even open the door, fully just stood there, blocking the entrance. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice flat. "I need to talk," he said, eyes shifting. "There's nothing to talk about," she replied. "You made your choice." He tried to explain, but she cut him off. "I believed you when you said you were different. I believed you when you said we'd make it. But every time, I end up here broken, embarrassed, and trying to defend you." He stepped closer, his voice low. "It's not what it looks like." Yandy's eyes filled with tears. "Then tell me what it is." He hesitated, searching for words that never came. "She's someone I used to know," he finally said. "It wasn't like that. We were just catching up." Yandy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think I'm stupid? Do you know what it feels like to find out from strangers that your husband's out with another woman?" He started to speak, but she slammed the door shut before he could. The sound echoed through the hall, final and sharp. That night, Mendeecees went live on Instagram. Fans flooded in instantly, thousands of viewers waiting to hear his side. He looked tired, unshaven, wearing a hoodie pulled low. "Look, I know people got a lot to say," he began, "but y'all don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Me and Yandy, we've been through real stuff. We not perfect. But everything y'all seeing online ain't the full story." The comments came fast. "So what's the story then? Who's the woman?" Stop dodging the question. He scrolled through them, sighed, and shook his head. "I ain't naming nobody. It's already too messy. All I'ma say is sometimes people see what they want to see. But I still got love for my family. That ain't changing." He ended the live after 5 minutes, leaving fans more confused than before. By morning, his vague response only fueled more rumors. Blogs ran headlines like "Mendeecees refuses to deny affair" and "Yandy's heartbreak goes public." His silence became its own confession. Days later, a new twist hit the internet. A fan claimed to have seen the mystery woman leaving a hotel in Atlanta, the same hotel where Mendeecees had stayed for a business event. Photos surfaced, showing a woman matching the same coat and hairstyle. It was enough to restart the fire. And this time, even Yandy's closest friends began to question what she didn't want to admit. Kimbella called her. Voices began to question what she didn't want to admit. Kimbella called her, trembling. "Sis, I didn't want to say nothing, but they saying she's been around before. Like, around the set." Yandy's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "Like, she's been working with some people connected to production. I don't know all the details, but it's looking messy." Yandy didn't respond. She just ended the call, sat in silence, and stared out the window. The city lights below felt distant, almost mocking. For the first time in years, she realized she didn't know who to trust anymore. Her friends had opinions, the fans had judgments, and Mendeecees had excuses, but none of them had the truth she needed. That night, she packed a small bag and left the house without saying a word. She needed distance from the noise, the cameras, and from him. And as she drove through the quiet streets, one thought kept echoing in her mind. Maybe this time, I really am done for real. The next morning, the city woke up buzzing. Every blog, every talk show, every gossip page had the same headline: Yandy leaves home after late-night confrontation. Camera crews camped outside her brownstone, hoping to catch a glimpse, but she was already gone. No one knew where she went. Only one person did: her best friend Keisha, who picked her up at midnight and drove her 2 hours out of New York to a quiet cabin near the lake. In the stillness of that morning, Yandy sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket. Phone off, coffee in hand, trying to breathe without feeling the weight of the world pressing down on her. Keisha looked at her, worried. You gonna tell me what really happened? Yandy's voice cracked. I don't even know anymore. I thought I did, but every time I think back, there were signs. Keisha frowned. Signs. Yandy nodded. He started being distant. Late night calls, random trips, and every time I asked, he said I was Her eyes filled. I wasn't I was ignoring my instincts. Back in the city, Mendeecees was doing damage control. His publicist urged him to make a statement. You need to get ahead of this. Silence looks like guilt. He paced the room, shaking his head. Every time I open my mouth, they twist it. I'm not feeding the drama. The publicist sighed. It's already fed. It's a monster now. The longer you wait, the uglier it gets. Meanwhile, the mystery woman finally had a name. The internet had found her: Talia Banks, a former stylist who had worked on a few love and hip-hop shoots years back. Within hours, her old photos resurfaced, fans piecing together her connection to Mendeecees. They noticed she'd liked several of his old posts, commented emojis that now seemed suspicious. And then someone found a video from a 2019 event: Talia, standing just a few feet behind Yandy and Mendeecees, smiling for the cameras. The puzzle pieces were fitting together, and it didn't look good. When Yandy's team saw the clip, they begged her to stay silent, but it was too late. The media had already built its story. The stylist, the late-night meeting, the photo, the disappearance. Everything pointed to betrayal. At the cabin, Keisha handed Yandy her phone. Girl, you need to see this. Yandy hesitated before unlocking it. Her screen filled with notifications, messages from producers, friends, even fans she'd never met. But one text stood out. It was from an unknown number. He said it wasn't supposed to go this far. Her breath caught. Who is this? She whispered. Keisha looked alarmed. What do you mean? Who sent that? Yandy showed her the phone, the text glowing on the screen. For a moment, they both sat in stunned silence. It could have been fake. Another troll. Or maybe it was her. Talia. Back in Harlem, Mendeecees was losing his grip. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. His friends tried to talk sense into him, but he brushed them off. They don't know what's real, he muttered. They don't know what me and Yandy been through. His brother tried to reason with him. Then tell her, man, tell her everything before she walks for good. Mendeecees stared out the window. She already gone. That night, he scrolled through his camera roll, stopping at a picture of them from years ago, smiling, arms around each other. Before the fame, before the chaos. He closed his eyes and whispered, I messed up. 2 days later, he decided to find her. He called Keisha, but she refused to answer. So he drove. He didn't know exactly where she was, but he knew her. He knew where she went when she needed to disappear. By dusk, he found himself outside that same cabin, headlights cutting through the fog. Inside, Yandy froze when she heard the tires crunch on gravel. Keisha peeked through the blinds. It's him. Yandy's stomach dropped. Don't open the door. But Mendeecees knocked anyway, once, twice, then a third time. Louder. Yandy, please, he called. Just talk to me. She finally opened the door. Only halfway. You got nerve showing up here. He looked wrecked. I had to see you. Please, just let me explain. She didn't move. You said everything you needed to say the night you lied to my face. It wasn't like that. He pleaded. That picture don't. She interrupted. Don't tell me it's not what it looks like. I'm tired of hearing that line. His voice softened. I was meeting her about a business project. That's all. She used to work with my people. I didn't think it would be a big deal. Yandy folded her arms. Then why didn't you tell me? He hesitated. Because I knew how it would look, and I didn't want another fight. She stared at him, eyes glistening. So instead of honesty, you chose secrecy. And now you want sympathy? He took a step forward, but she backed away. You've been out. You've seen what fame does. People twist stories. I didn't cheat, Yandy. I didn't. She exhaled shakily. I want to believe you, but every time you lie, you sound like this: calm, careful, rehearsed. He looked at her, defeated. I swear on my kids, nothing happened. That name kids hung heavy between them. Yandy's voice broke. Don't bring them into this. They're the only reason I didn't lose my mind already. Keisha quietly slipped into the other room, leaving them alone. Mendeecees sat down, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. I've made mistakes, he murmured. Too many, but this ain't one of them. You think I'd risk everything for a rumor? She didn't answer. Her silence said everything. After a long pause, she finally spoke. Even if you didn't cheat, you let me feel like you did. You watched me drown in humiliation while you said nothing. You could have protected me from the internet, from the lies, from the pain, but you didn't. You let me bleed publicly while you stayed quiet. He looked up, eyes red. I thought if I stayed silent, it would die down. No, she said quietly. It killed us instead. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows. Inside, two people who once built a life together sat in ruins of trust. After what felt like hours, Yandy whispered, I need time. Mendeecees nodded slowly. Take all the time you need, but please, don't shut me out forever. She turned away, her voice barely audible. Forever already started the night you lied. He stood up, looked at her one last time, then walked out into the cold. She watched from the window as his car disappeared down the dirt road. The sound of the engine faded until all that was left was silence, thick, painful, final. By the next morning, gossip blogs were claiming an exclusive source had confirmed the breakup. Yandy and Mendeecees are officially done, one headline screamed. Fans filled the comments with heartbreak and disbelief. They were love goals. I can't believe it's over. This one hurts. Others weren't as kind. We saw it coming. He'd been shady since day one. But while the internet celebrated the scandal, no one knew the private truth. Yandy hadn't confirmed anything. She hadn't spoken to the press. She hadn't said a word. Until later that evening, when she finally posted again, it wasn't a photo. It was a video. No makeup, no filter, just her in that same cabin. Eyes swollen but steady. Her voice was calm, quiet, but it carried the weight of every broken promise. I've learned something, she said. You can love somebody so hard that you forget to love yourself. And when that happens, even the strongest heart will break. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. She paused, took a deep breath, and ended the video with 4 simple words that echoed through every corner of the internet. Protect your peace, first. And within an hour, that clip hit 1 million views. Fans reposted it with captions like queen behavior and the message every woman needed to hear. But somewhere in Harlem, Mendeecees behavior and the message every woman needed to hear. But somewhere in Harlem, Mendeecees watched that same video in silence, phone trembling in his hand, realizing that this time, her goodbye wasn't temporary. Because deep down, he could feel it too. This wasn't just a break. It was the beginning of the end. The night after Yandy's video dropped, everything shifted. Social media became a battlefield. Hashtags like #TMyYandy and #Justice for Mendeecees flooded the timeline. Everyone had an opinion, but no one had the truth. Still, one thing was clear: the couple that once symbolized loyalty had become the center of reality TV's biggest heartbreak. Fans rewatched old love and hip-hop clips, searching for signs they had missed. Every old argument, every uneasy glance suddenly looked like a clue to their collapse. In Harlem, Mendeecees was spiraling. The house felt empty without her voice, without the kids' laughter echoing through the halls. His sister came over to check on him, but he barely spoke. You need to get yourself together, she said, folding her arms. Sitting here feeling sorry for yourself ain't gonna fix it. He looked up, eyes hollow. You think I didn't try? I told her everything. She doesn't believe me, she sighed. Maybe because your actions talk louder than your words. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I built my whole life trying to be the man she thought I was. Now I don't even know who that is anymore. His sister softened. Then figure it out, before it's too late. The next day, Talia, the woman at the center of the scandal, finally broke her silence. She posted a statement on her Instagram story. I'm not involved in anyone's marriage. I met with Mendeecees for business. The rest is noise. But it was too late. The public had already decided who she was. Her comments section filled with insults, accusations, and even threats. She deleted her account within hours, disappearing as quickly as she had appeared. That night, Yandy got a call from Mona Scott. Listen, Mona said gently, I know this is personal, but the world wants your story. We can shoot it your way. Your truth, your words. Yandy hesitated. You mean use my pain for ratings? Mona paused. I mean, use your pain for power. You control the narrative, not the blogs. After hanging up, Yandy sat in silence, replaying Mona's words. Power. Maybe for once, she could turn this humiliation into something bigger. Something that reminded every woman watching that strength doesn't mean silence. A week later, filming began. Cameras rolled as Yandy returned to her house, walking through the door with a look that was part grief, part defiance. The crew stayed quiet, sensing the weight of the moment. She stood in the living room, the same spot where she'd once celebrated anniversaries, birthdays, family dinners. Now it felt like a museum of broken memories. "This house used to feel alive," she said to the camera, voice trembling. "But sometimes, you don't realize you've been living in a ghost story until the lights go out." As the episode aired weeks later, fans watched in shock. It was raw, emotional, and nothing like the glossy reality TV they were used to. Yandy's vulnerability made headlines again, but this time the narrative shifted. She wasn't the scorned wife anymore. She was the woman who walked away from chaos with her dignity intact. Meanwhile, Mendeecees watched that episode from his couch, head in his hands. Every word she said felt like a blade, especially when she looked into the camera and whispered, "Some love stories don't end with hate. They end with silence." His phone buzzed, non-stop calls from producers, castmates, even old friends. Everyone wanted him to respond. He refused, until one call changed everything. It was his mother. "Son," she said softly, "you need to fix this. Not for TV, not for the fans, for your soul." He sighed. "Ma, she don't want to hear it." "Then write it," she said. "Say what you can't say out loud." That night, Mendeecees sat at his desk, pulled out a notebook, and started writing. "To the woman who saw the best in me even when I didn't deserve it." He poured out everything, every apology, every regret, every truth he had never spoken. When he finished, the pages were wet with tears. He didn't send it right away. Instead, he folded the letter, sealed it, and drove to the cabin where she'd stayed. When he got there, no one answered. So he slipped it under the door and walked away. 2 days later, Yandy returned to the cabin. She found the envelope lying on the floor. For a long moment, she just stared at it. Then she opened it, slowly, cautiously. His handwriting was messy, uneven, but every word hit like thunder. "I didn't cheat. I was careless. I let my silence destroy what honesty could have saved. You didn't lose me, I lost myself. And now I'm trying to find a version of me that deserves your forgiveness." She read it twice, tears streaming down her face. The pain was still raw, but somewhere beneath it, there was something else, a flicker of the man she once loved. Later that evening, she called him. He answered on the first ring. "Yandy." His voice cracked. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I got your letter." There was silence, then a deep sigh. And, "I don't know what comes next, but I heard you." They didn't speak long. It wasn't reconciliation, it wasn't closure. It was something in between. A few days later, the two were spotted together at a charity event in Atlanta. No PDA, no smiles, just two people standing near each other, still trying to navigate the storm. Fans lost their minds. Are they back together? She took him back already. It's all for publicity. The internet couldn't decide if it was real or strategic. But what no one saw was the quiet conversation they had after the cameras turned off. Sitting in the car, she looked at him and said, "This doesn't mean everything's okay. It just means I'm willing to listen." He nodded. "That's all I need right now." Yet, even as they tried to rebuild, new rumors began to spread. Someone leaked unseen footage from a production. Assistants phone clips of Mendeecees and Talia at a private event weeks before the scandal broke. The footage didn't show anything explicit, but the body language was enough to reignite the flames. Yandy's phone exploded again with notifications. Her heart sank. "Not again," she whispered. She called Mendeecees immediately. "Tell me this isn't real." His voice was barely a whisper. "I don't even know where that came from. Answer me," she snapped. "Is it you or not?" A long pause. Then, "Yeah, it's me, but it wasn't what people think." She hung up before he could finish. The next morning, the blogs went nuclear. "New footage proves Mendeecees lied." One headline read. Fans turned on him instantly. "He's a liar. She should have stayed gone. Men like him never change." Once again, Yandy was at the center of a public storm she didn't ask for. But this time, she didn't hide. She posted a single photo, her looking directly into the camera. No caption. The message was clear. She wasn't broken anymore. She was done playing the victim. Meanwhile, Mendeecees finally agreed to sit down for a tell-all interview. When the interviewer asked if he regretted what happened, he paused before answering. "Every day," he said quietly. "But sometimes you don't realize you're losing something real until it's already gone." When asked if he thought they could ever reconcile, He smiled faintly. That's not up to me anymore. That's up to her. That line went viral. Fans flooded Yandy's comments, begging her to give him another chance. He looks sincere. He learned his lesson. True love deserves forgiveness. But others weren't so forgiving. He's just doing damage control. Don't fall for it, sis. As the noise grew louder, Yandy turned off her comments and focused on her work. She started a new mentorship program for women rebuilding after toxic relationships. At the launch event, when asked if she was officially single, she smiled and said, "I'm officially at peace." The crowd cheered, but somewhere, backstage, Mendeecees watched from a distance, proud yet heartbroken. He didn't approach her, didn't speak, just watched as the woman he once broke became stronger than ever. And for the first time, he realized the truth. He hadn't lost her to another man, he'd lost her to herself. To the version of her that finally remembered her worth. The world kept talking, the blogs kept spinning, but the real story was quiet to people who loved deeply, hurt deeply, and learned that sometimes, walking away is the only way to survive. The night after the leaked video broke the internet, things only grew darker. Yandy hadn't spoken to the media yet, but her silence was louder than any statement. She stayed off social media, locked herself in her apartment with just her kids and her closest friend Kimbella checking in. But as cameras camped outside her building and blogs published every rumor they could find, Mendeecees was still out somewhere, moving quietly in the shadows. Some claimed he'd been spotted at a luxury apartment in Soho. Others said he'd flown to Miami with the same mystery woman from the footage. Either way, one truth was clear: he wasn't with Yandy, and that absence spoke volumes. Inside Yandy's apartment, the tension was unbearable. Her phone buzzed non-stop with messages, half of them from producers begging her to give a statement for the upcoming reunion episode. She tossed the phone aside and stared out the window at the flashing cameras below. Her son asked softly, "Mommy, are you and Daddy fighting again?" Yandy blinked back tears and said, "No baby, Mommy's just thinking." But deep down, she knew she was done pretending. After years of defending Mendeecees, of standing by him through prison time, infidelity rumors, and business scandals, she'd reached her breaking point. Later that night, Kimbella poured her a glass of wine and said, "Girl, I know you love him, but love don't mean losing yourself." Yandy sighed, her voice cracking. "I kept hoping he'd change. I believed him every time he said it was different this time." Kimbella leaned forward. "And what now? What you gonna tell the world when the reunion cameras roll?" Yandy took a deep breath, staring straight ahead. "I'm gonna tell the truth. All of it?" The way she said it made Kimbella shiver, because when Yandy spoke like that, she meant every word. Meanwhile, Mendeecees was cornered in Miami. Paparazzi followed his every move, and one caught him entering a restaurant with the same woman from the video, this time holding hands. Within minutes, blogs exploded again. Mendeecees moves on fast. One headline screamed, "Yandy who?" Another mocked. Fans were divided. Some said he was being set up. Others said the evidence was undeniable. Under one post, a fan commented, "After everything Yandy did for him, nah, this is low." Another replied, "Maybe she finally sees his true colors." The comment section became a battlefield. At 3 a.m., Yandy finally decided to speak. She posted a black screen on Instagram with a single caption, "Enough is enough." Within minutes, it had millions of views. She followed it with a video, her voice calm but trembling. "I've kept quiet for too long," she began. "I've tried to protect my family, but protecting lies destroys you from the inside out. I'm done. For real this time." The clip went viral instantly. Celebrities, fans, and even producers from other shows shared it. The internet was stunned. Mendeecees hadn't responded yet, but people knew it was coming. He was too proud, too defensive to stay silent. When he finally spoke 2 days later, it wasn't what anyone expected. Standing outside a studio in Atlanta, surrounded by flashing cameras, he said, "I ain't perfect. But don't believe everything y'all see online. Half these blogs don't even know the truth." But when a reporter shouted, "So is that woman your girlfriend?" he froze. Then, instead of answering, he smirked and walked away. That smirk broke whatever was left of public sympathy. Fans turned on him instantly, calling him disrespectful and arrogant. Yandy stayed silent after that. No clapback, no response, nothing. It was like she'd already said all she needed to say. Behind the scenes, producers from Love and Hip Hop saw opportunity. They called both Yandy and Mendeecees, offering a special Talal episode to air exclusively on VH1. At first, Yandy refused, saying, "I'm not turning my pain into ratings." But after her team convinced her that telling her side publicly might help her move on, She agreed on one condition. She wanted it filmed live, unedited, and without Mendeecees controlling the narrative. The network agreed instantly. Ratings, gold. Word spread fast, and by the time the date was announced, social media went into meltdown. Fans started picking sides. #T My Yandy and #Team Mendeecees trended for days. When the live special aired, millions tuned in. Yandy walked onto the stage wearing all white. And collected, like she'd already made peace with her decision. The host asked her directly, "What made you say I'm done for real this time?" She looked straight into the camera and said, "Because I finally saw who he is when the cameras aren't rolling." The audience gasped. Mendeecees, sitting across from her, shifted uncomfortably. "Yandy, you act like I'm the only one who made mistakes," he said, trying to sound composed. Yandy shot back, "No, you're the only one who kept repeating them." The exchange grew heated. He accused her of using the drama for fame, and she accused him of using love as a cover. At one point, Mendeecees said, "You think the streets care about your tears?" And Yandy replied coldly, "They care more than you ever did." Fans watching live flooded social media with reactions, some cheering her strength, others shocked by how raw it was. As the tension hit its peak, the host cut to commercial. But off camera, the argument didn't stop. Crew members had to step between them. Mendeecees stormed off set, shouting, "You'll regret this," while Yandy sat quietly, tears rolling down her face. When they came back from break, he was gone, and she ended the episode alone, saying, "Sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you can do." That line echoed across the internet. Clips of it played on talk shows, podcasts, and fan edits. People called it one of the most powerful moments in reality TV history. But behind that composure, Yandy was still processing everything: the betrayal, the exposure, the fact that the man she once defended was now a stranger. Friends said she started therapy and focused on her kids. She turned down new reality show offers, saying she needed time to heal privately. Still, she couldn't escape the headlines. Paparazzi followed her everywhere, waiting for a sign of reconciliation. But Yandy didn't flinch. She posted only motivational quotes and family photos, always smiling but never mentioning Mendeecees again. Then came the final twist no one expected. 3 weeks later, a video surfaced showing Mendeecees standing outside Yandy's building late at night, holding a bouquet of roses. The clip was shaky, recorded by a neighbor, but you could hear him saying, "Just let me talk to you." Yandy's voice replied from behind the door, "Go home, Mendeecees." He said, "I messed up, but I still love you." She answered, "Love shouldn't hurt this much." The door never opened. Fans argued whether it was staged or real, but one thing was certain: something inside Yandy had finally closed for good. The next morning, Mendeecees posted nothing. For once, he stayed completely silent. No apology, no defense, no denial. And maybe that silence was the truest confession of all. The morning after that late-night confrontation, New York woke up buzzing again. The viral video of Mendeecees begging outside Yandy's apartment had already hit every blog, every gossip site, every fan page dedicated to love and hip-hop. It wasn't just trending. It was the only thing people were talking about. Hashtags exploded. #Yandy moved on. #Mendeecees redemption. #the final goodbye. The whole world was trying to decide if that desperate act was a genuine apology or just another performance from a man who didn't know how to let go. Inside that apartment, Yandy sat quietly at her kitchen table, coffee untouched. Her phone kept lighting up with messages, some from friends saying, "Girl, don't you dare go back." Others begging her to hear him out one last time. She stared at the screen and whispered to herself, "Everyone's got an opinion on my pain." She thought about the years she spent defending him, holding it down when he was in prison, keeping the family together when he couldn't. She had built an empire out of loyalty, but now that same loyalty felt like a chain. Across town, Mendeecees was pacing his hotel room. His manager told him, "Bro, you gotta fix your image." The network's freaking out, sponsors pulling back. But he wasn't thinking about business. He was thinking about how Yandy's voice had cracked when she said, "Love shouldn't hurt this much." That line kept echoing in his head, louder than the noise outside. He opened his phone, scrolled through old photos, family vacations, anniversaries, birthdays. He muttered, "Anniversaries, birthdays." He muttered, "How did we get here?" And for the first time, the man who always thought he had control looked completely lost. By afternoon, paparazzi had found his hotel. Flashes went off as soon as he stepped outside. Someone shouted, "Mendeecees, are you still seeing the mystery woman?" He didn't answer, just kept walking. Another yelled, "What do you want to say to Yandy now?" He stopped for half a second, looked at the camera, and said, I want her to know I'm sorry, even if she never forgives me. It was the first honest thing he'd said in months, but for Yandy, the damage had already gone too deep. Later that evening, the network released a teaser for next season's Love and Hip Hop. And to everyone's surprise, Yandy wasn't in it. Her face was nowhere to be seen. No clips, no voiceovers, nothing. Fans were stunned. Comment sections exploded. No Yandy, no show. She carried that franchise for years. Producers scrambled to do damage control, but Yandy was done with the cameras. She told her publicist, "I'm not living my pain for ratings anymore." Instead, she quietly began working on a documentary about women rebuilding after betrayal. She called it After Love, but Mendeecees couldn't escape the mess. Old rumors resurfaced, business partners claiming he owed money, former friends giving interviews about his ego, and even the mystery woman herself coming forward. She gave an exclusive to a gossip blog, saying, "He told me they were already separated. I didn't know he was lying." Fans didn't buy it. They flooded her comments, calling her the reason a family broke. She tried to defend herself, but the internet doesn't forgive. Within days, she deleted her accounts and vanished from social media entirely. The real storm though hit when Mendeecees showed up uninvited to a charity event Yandy was hosting in Harlem. Dressed in all black, he stood quietly at the back of the room as she gave a speech about resilience and When she finished, he walked up to her. Cameras caught every step. He handed her a single white rose and said, "I came to say I'm proud of you." The crowd went silent. She looked at him for a long moment, then said softly, "Thank you, but this part of my life is over." Applause filled the room, and Mendeecees nodded, stepped back, and left without another word. That moment became iconic. Screenshots, clips, memes. Fans called it the end of an era. From that day forward, things began to change. Yandy launched her foundation for single mothers, focusing on financial independence and emotional healing. Her message was clear: you can rebuild, even after the worst heartbreak. Interviews, podcasts, and TV networks lined up to feature her. She wasn't just a reality star anymore. She had become a symbol of strength. Her following doubled, her influence grew, and people finally saw her for more than the drama. She didn't need the show, the cameras, or the chaos. She had peace, and for the first time in years, that was enough. Mendeecees, meanwhile, drifted further from the spotlight. Without Yandy beside him, his name didn't carry the same weight. Bookings slowed down, brands pulled back, and producers stopped calling. Fans still argued about whether he deserved forgiveness, but his silence spoke volumes. Sometimes he posted cryptic quotes, "We all lose what we take for granted," or "Some lessons come too late." But he never mentioned Yandy again. It was like he finally understood that chasing her would only reopen wounds that needed to close. Months passed. New rumors came and went, but nothing ever matched the explosion of that scandal. The story of Mendeecees and Yandy became a cautionary tale told on podcasts and talk shows. People said, they had it all and lost it to pride. Others said, maybe it had to end so they could both find themselves. For Yandy, life became quiet again. Mornings with her kids, evenings spent planning her next project, nights filled with peace instead of arguments. Sometimes she still scrolled through old pictures, not out of longing, but to remind herself how far she'd come. One night, during an interview, the host asked, if Mendeecees ever apologized privately, would you forgive him? She smiled faintly and said, "Forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about setting yourself free." The audience applauded, but behind her calm tone, there was a softness that hinted at closure, not bitterness. Mendeecees watched that interview from his living room, alone. He smiled too sadly, quietly, and turned off the TV. And so the love story that once captivated millions ended not with a reunion, but with acceptance. Fans still debate whether there's a chance they'll ever reconcile. But Yandy's last public statement said it all. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done." The world moved on. But that chapter of reality TV stayed burned into pop culture forever. A reminder that behind every glamorous post and dramatic episode, there are real people, real hearts, and sometimes, real endings that no amount of cameras can fix. When the next season aired, the ratings dipped. Fans commented, "It just doesn't feel the same without them." And maybe they were right. Because Love and Hip Hop lost more than its biggest couple, it lost its truth. The messy, raw human part that made it real. And somewhere in Harlem, under a quiet sky, Yandy looked out her window, whispered a prayer for peace, and finally smiled, not because she won, but because she survived. Weeks turned into months, and though the internet had moved on to new scandals, whispers of Yandy and Mendeecees still drifted through the gossip world like smoke that refused to clear. Every now and then, a fan would post an old clip of the two laughing together and caption it, They were goals before it all went left. Those memories hurt Yandy, but she never deleted or hid them. She said once in an interview, "Erasing the past doesn't heal you. It just hides the proof of how strong you had to be." That line went viral too, reminding everyone that her strength wasn't born out of bitterness, but out of survival. By spring, Yandy had rebuilt her entire routine. She was running meetings for her foundation, filming a docuseries about women finding independence, and showing up at community events with her usual calm grace. Still, every time she saw a black SUV parked too long outside the building, her heart skipped. A part of her wondered if it was Mendeecees again, but it never was. He had gone quiet, and silence, once something she begged for in their chaotic years together, now felt strange. Mendeecees had left New York. Sources said he was living in Atlanta again, renting a modest townhouse far from the spotlight. No parties, no headlines, no new woman. People said he looked tired, thinner, quieter. He had started mentoring young men, talking about choices and regrets. One fan who met him at a workshop posted, "He looked like a man trying to fix his soul." It was clear the scandal had changed him, but the question was whether it was too late to change anything that mattered. One night Yandy received an unexpected email. It was from a producer who said Mendeecees wanted to contribute to her upcoming documentary. Not for camera time, not for drama, but to donate and support. Yandy didn't respond right away. She stared at the screen for hours, her mind spinning with memories, good ones and painful ones tangled together. Finally, she replied with 2 words, "Thank you." No more, no less. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't rejection either. It was acknowledgement, the first crack of light after a long storm. The press got wind of it immediately. Is a reunion coming? One headline screamed, "Fans hope for reconciliation." Another speculated, but Yandy stayed silent, and Mendeecees refused all interviews. Behind the scenes, though, something had shifted. They weren't speaking much, just the occasional polite message, but it was civil, and in their world, civility was progress. Then, unexpectedly, fate brought them face to face. It was a community event in Harlem. Either knew the other would be there. Yandy was on stage talking about building a better future for children when she noticed him in the crowd. He didn't make a scene, didn't approach her, just stood quietly and listened. After she finished, he walked up slowly, hands in his pockets, eyes low. "You're doing something real special," he said softly. Yandy looked at him for a long time before answering, "I had to turn pain into purpose. It's the only way I survived it." He nodded. "I get that now." It was a simple exchange, but it carried years of unspoken apology. That brief encounter spread across social media like wildfire. Clips, photos, whispers. Everyone thought they were getting back together, but in truth, it was just 2 people finally seeing each other without all the noise between them. Later that night, Yandy told her team, "People always want a fairy tale ending. Sometimes the real ending is just peace." Still, something about that meeting stirred old memories. Yandy went home and found herself scrolling through old videos, the early days, when everything felt raw but real. She watched one clip of them laughing in the kitchen, arguing about who made better pancakes. For a second, she smiled, not because she missed him, but because she remembered who she was before everything fell apart. As for Mendeecees, that moment with Yandy hit harder than he expected. He spent the following days replaying it in his head. The way she looked at him, not angry anymore, not sad, just calm. It made him realize she had healed in a way he hadn't. That night, he called his sister and said, "I think I finally understand what letting go really means." She asked, "You gonna try to win her back?" And he said, "Nah, I just want to be the kind of man who deserves peace too." Over time, they both continued growing separately. Yandy's foundation expanded to 3 new cities. She was invited to speak at universities, her words inspiring thousands of women to walk away from toxic love and rebuild. Her speech at Howard University became legendary. She said, "Don't confuse love with loyalty. Loyalty to pain will drown you." The crowd gave her a standing ovation. Meanwhile, Mendeecees stayed focused on community work, visiting schools, teaching young men how not to repeat his mistakes. Then came the twist no one predicted. VH1 approached them both for a reunion special, not about rekindled romance, but about closure. It was pitched as a sit-down to discuss growth and lessons learned, not drama. At first Yandy said no. She didn't want to reopen old wounds. But after some thought, she agreed if it could help people understand the difference between healing and headlines. Mendeecees agreed to, promising, "No games this time." When the special aired, the tone was completely different from the chaos years ago. There were no shouting matches, no tears, no broken glasses. Just 2 people sitting across from each other, calm and reflective. The host asked, "If you could change one thing about your story, what would it be?" Mendeecees answered quietly, "I would have listened more and lied less." The crowd fell silent. Then he looked at Yandy and said, "You didn't deserve the hurt I caused." Yandy nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "Thank you," she said, "but we both learned from it. That's the part that matters." Fans watching at home felt something different. No fairy tale reunion. No messy drama. Just maturity. One tweet said, "They grew up. Maybe that's the real happy ending." Another said, "This is what evolution looks like." The episode pulled in massive ratings not because of chaos, but because it felt honest. After filming, they shared a quiet moment backstage. Mendeecees said, "You ever think about what could have been?" She smiled faintly. "Sometimes, but I think about what is more." He nodded. "You ever hate me?" She took a long pause. "I hated who you became, not who you were, but I don't carry that anymore." For the first time, he smiled genuinely. Not the smirk people remembered, but a tired, peaceful smile. "Then I can live with that," he said, before walking away. In the weeks that followed, the world praised their maturity, calling it a new chapter for reality TV. Yandy used the attention to promote her foundation, while Mendeecees launched a mentorship program called Second Chances. Both projects were supported by fans who once loved their chaos but now respected their growth. Still, late at night, both of them sometimes thought about the journey, how love had turned to war, how pride had burned everything down, and how, somehow, they had walked out of the fire better than before. Yandy wrote in her journal, "Closure doesn't come when someone apologizes. It comes when you realize you don't need them to." One afternoon, months later, they crossed paths again, this time at a charity gala. It wasn't planned, just fate. They exchanged a polite smile, a brief hug, then moved on to greet other guests. But that tiny moment sparked endless online speculation again, yet neither said a word publicly. Because finally, their story didn't belong to the internet anymore. It belonged to the past. Mendeecees eventually relocated full-time to Atlanta, focusing on his nonprofit and staying out of tabloids. He rarely posted on social media, but every now and then, he shared motivational quotes about growth and accountability. Fans noticed he wore no jewelry, no designer, just simple hoodies and sneakers. He wasn't trying to impress anyone anymore. One post read, "When you lose someone who truly loved you, don't look for another love. Look for the reason you lost the first." It went viral instantly, with fans tagging Yandy's name in the comments, but she never responded. She didn't need to. Yandy's life, meanwhile, bloomed. She released a book titled Done for Real, blending memoir and empowerment. It became a bestseller overnight. In one chapter, she wrote, "When love turns into survival, it's time to choose yourself." She never mentioned Mendeecees by name, but readers knew. During a TV interview promoting it, the host asked, "Have you completely closed that chapter?" Yandy smiled gently. "I've closed it, but I keep the lessons. That's what love taught me." Their kids grew older, wiser. They understood more than either parent realized. One day, their son told Yandy, "I'm proud of you, Mom." She asked why, and he said, "Because you didn't stay sad." She hugged him tight and whispered, "Because I had to show you that pain isn't forever." And in that moment, she knew everything she endured had purpose. As years passed, both moved on quietly. No reunion, no rekindled flame, just two souls who once burned together learning to shine apart. Still, somewhere in the quiet spaces between memory and forgiveness, there was respect. And maybe, after everything, that was enough. The more people learned about the scandal, the more it began to look like something far darker than anyone had guessed. Joe Rogan's podcast had set off a firestorm, but behind the scenes, something even bigger was unfolding. Investigators were now quietly revisiting old transactions, looking into foundations, nonprofits, and shell companies that linked back to Charlie Kirk's late wife. Her name started appearing in documents related to political donations, luxury property deals, and media contracts that didn't make sense. One insider claimed there were coded payments labeled as consulting fees that led directly to accounts in the Cayman Islands. Joe's team was warned to back off, but Joe Rogan wasn't built to back off. He doubled down, bringing in cyber investigators and former FBI analysts to trace the money. What they found could shatter several public figures if proven true. Andrew Schultz joined him on air again, his tone half joking but his eyes sharp. "Bro, this is next level. It's not even about one person anymore. It's like an entire network hiding behind her name." Joe nodded slowly. "Yeah, and the timing is what's killing me. Every time someone digs a little deeper, something weird happens. People go quiet, files disappear, or accounts get wiped overnight. It's like someone's cleaning up." The audience was hooked. Millions watched live as they broke down diagrams of connections, explaining how a widow once thought to be grieving quietly might have been sitting on a mountain of secrets. But then came the real twist. A man claiming to be a former assistant of the Kirk family reached out. His message was simple. If you really want to know what happened, check the videos she recorded before disappearing. The assistant said she had recorded hours of private footage during her final weeks, documenting everything she feared would be buried. Joe's producer Jamie was able to verify that such files existed but were stored under heavy encryption, accessible only through a hidden link. By the next morning, Joe's phone buzzed with a message. "You've been warned." He looked at Andrew and muttered, "They're watching." Meanwhile, mainstream outlets began running hit pieces, calling Joe's investigation reckless, dangerous, and conspiratorial. Hashtags like #RoganLies and #WidowTruth flooded social media. Yet, curiously, none of the critics addressed the actual evidence. One of Joe's sources leaked that certain media executives had been threatened with lawsuits if they covered the story. Despite the smear campaign, Joe pressed on. On his next podcast, he played a short audio clip, allegedly from one of the encrypted files. A woman's voice whispered, "They said I wasn't supposed to know, but I saw everything." The internet froze. That single sentence was enough to ignite chaos. People began connecting dots between her, powerful donors, and unexplained campaign money. Anonymous hackers jumped into the chaos, claiming they were working to decrypt the remaining files. Within 48 hours, clips started circulating across underground forums, showing fragments of meetings, private parties, and conversations where influential figures discussed media control, funding manipulation, and a restructuring plan. And at the center of every conversation was her. Joe's studio went into lockdown mode as threats escalated. Producers had to operate from undisclosed locations while legal teams scrambled to verify authenticity before airing anything further. The tension reached a breaking point when Andrew received a strange call. The voice on the other end said, "Stop airing lies, or you'll end up like her." He tried to trace it, but it came from a secure, encrypted line. Paranoia began to seep into every episode. Joe's usual laughter was replaced by silence and long pauses. "We're dealing with something dangerous," he finally said. "Liv, this isn't entertainment anymore." The audience could feel the weight of it. Fans began showing support, flooding social media with the tag #ProtectRogan, but some felt uneasy, questioning if Joe had gone too far. Days later, the assistant who first reached out suddenly vanished, his phone disconnected, his apartment abandoned. All his online profiles were wiped, even his birth records disappeared. It was as if he had never existed. Joe looked at Andrew during one of their private meetings and said, "We might be next." Andrew tried to laugh it off but couldn't. That same night, Joe's car alarm went off at 3 a.m. When he checked the footage, a shadowy figure stood across the street for several minutes before disappearing. That was the moment Joe decided to pull back temporarily. But before he could go offline, something unexpected arrived at his studio. An unmarked USB drive slipped through the mail slot. No return address, no message. The label read only, "Watch this before they erase everything." Jamie hesitated, scanning it for malware. After confirming it was clean, they loaded it onto an isolated system. The screen flickered, then revealed what looked like a recorded meeting between several executives, political operatives, and one familiar face, the widow. She sat calmly, her voice steady. "If this leaks," she said, "it all burns down. They'll come for me first." Joe leaned forward, whispering, "Holy shit." The footage continued, showing documents being exchanged, people signing non-disclosure agreements, and one man saying, "Make sure the narrative is controlled. We can't afford exposure before the next cycle." The podcast team debated whether to release it. Joe wanted to drop it live, no edits. His legal team begged him not to, warning it could trigger lawsuits and potential criminal investigations. But Joe's instinct was louder than fear. "Truth doesn't wait," he said. The next day, he announced a live episode titled "The Tape They Didn't Want You to See." It broke the internet. Millions tuned in within minutes. As the footage played, viewers flooded the chat with disbelief and anger. The widow's calm voice echoed again, repeating, "You can't silence everyone forever." Then the stream abruptly cut off. Joe's feed went dark. At first, fans thought it was a technical glitch, but minutes later, all episodes involving the investigation vanished from Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts simultaneously. Joe's account locked. His website redirected to an error page. Social media lit up with confusion and outrage. Andrew went live on his own page, pale and shaken. "Joe's fine," he said carefully, "but we've been told not to speak further until things are reviewed." The words "until things are reviewed" sent chills through his audience. What exactly was being reviewed on by whom remained unclear. Behind closed doors, lawyers and government representatives had begun quietly meeting, and somewhere, a silent war over information had just begun. The next morning, Joe Rogan released a single cryptic post on X. It read, "The files aren't gone." Fans erupted. Theories exploded again. Some believed he had hidden backups in decentralized servers. Others claimed he had given the footage to multiple journalists as insurance. Whatever the truth was, one thing had changed forever. This wasn't just about a widow anymore. It was about control, silence, and the lengths power would go to keep the truth buried. And somewhere in the shadows, the woman who started it all, Charlie Kirk's widow, remained a ghost, unseen, unheard, but not forgotten. In the days that followed Joe's post, everything around him began to feel unreal. People he had known for years stopped answering calls. Sponsors quietly pulled back. Journalists who once begged for interviews now avoided his name. Yet the public refused to let the story die. Fan-led channels began reposting fragments of the lost episode, rebuilding the timeline piece by piece. Some even claimed to have access to the missing files. Joe watched from home, sitting in near darkness, as the chaos unfolded on his laptop. He knew the storm had grown far beyond his control. "They think they shut me up," he said under his breath. "But this is only the beginning." One night, while reviewing security footage from his studio, Joe noticed something strange. A man in a black jacket appeared at the door, standing still for nearly 5 minutes before leaving a small white envelope on the ground. When Joe opened it, there was no note, only a single keycard labeled C24. He recognized the marking. It belonged to a private storage facility outside Los Angeles. Despite his team's objections, Joe drove there himself. The facility was silent, the air thick with unease. His footsteps echoed as he found Unit C24. When he swiped the card, the door slid open to reveal several metal boxes stacked neatly inside. Each box had a label, Archive 1, Archive 2, and so on. Inside the first was a hard drive and a note written in shaky handwriting. "She knew everything. Keep it safe." Joe immediately called Jamie, his most trusted producer. "Get the off-grid setup ready," he said. Within hours, they had connected the drive to a secured offline network. The screen came alive with hundreds of files, video, scanned letters, and what looked like medical records. The widow's name appeared on several documents, alongside dates that matched key political events. There were transcripts of meetings with influential figures and coded memos marked private strategy. One file, titled Final Message, wouldn't open without a password. Joe stared at it, feeling a chill run through him. The deeper he went, the more he realized she hadn't been running away from guilt. She had been trying to expose something. Jamie leaned over his shoulder. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a folder labeled, Redacted. Inside were images of handwritten notes and an email chain between the widow and a contact saved as Sage. The messages spoke about media reprogramming, asset placement, and a planned incident meant to distract the public. One message ended with the line, "If they silence me, tell him the code is hidden in the signal." Joe frowned. "The signal," he whispered. "What does that mean?" Before they could continue, their power flickered. The screen went black for a few seconds, then rebooted. Jamie froze. "Joe, someone's tracking us?" They shut down the system and packed up everything. Within an hour, they relocated to a safe location, a friend's cabin deep in Colorado, disconnected from any public grid. There, surrounded by snow and silence, they resumed decoding the files. Andrew arrived 2 days later, visibly shaken. "Man, this is insane. They've been calling me lawyers, producers, even some senator's office. They all say the same. Even some senator's office. They all say the same thing: drop it or lose everything." Joe poured coffee into a tin mug, his expression steady. "They've already taken enough. We're finishing this." Andrew sighed. "You realize, once we release this, there's no going back, right?" Joe nodded. "That's the point." As they reviewed the footage again, they began piecing together the widow's final weeks. She wasn't hiding. She was documenting. In one clip, she sat by a window, visibly exhausted, saying, "They made me part of it without telling me. Money, influence, headlines all controlled. I tried to walk away, but the moment I did, they came for me." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "If this reaches Joe, it means I'm gone. Tell him the pattern repeats every 6 years. Follow the donations." Joe felt his stomach twist. The pattern. The donations. It all linked back to a recurring cycle of media manipulation that mirrored political funding waves. Andrew began tracing the years mentioned, cross-referencing open-source data with leaked documents. The pattern held. Every 6 years, a sudden shift in public narratives coincided with surges of anonymous financial contributions, all funneled through intermediaries tied to the same foundation, the same one connected to Charlie Kirk's network. The deeper they went, the clearer it became that this wasn't about personal corruption, it was systemic, engineered to influence everything from elections to cultural trends. This isn't just a cover-up, Andrew muttered. This is social architecture. Joe stared at the monitor, and she tried to blow it open. Days passed in silence as snow piled outside the cabin. Joe barely slept, his eyes fixed on lines of data and notes. Then one night, Jamie cracked the password. The file final message opened with a single video. The widow sat in a dimly lit room, looking calm but resigned. "If you're watching this," she said, "you found what they didn't want found. Everything is already in motion. They'll tell you I disappeared, but the truth, I was erased." She took a slow breath, then leaned forward. "The code is in the podcast signal. It's in your own broadcasts, Joe. They used your platform without you realizing it. Hidden metadata in your uploads, feeding into their system. Find it before they change the algorithm." The room fell silent. Joe replayed the words again. "In the podcast signal." He quickly instructed Jamie to analyze his past uploads. After hours of running forensic scans, they discovered encrypted packets embedded deep within the metadata fragments of code piggybacking on the audio files. None of it made sense until Jamie decrypted one piece. A set of coordinates appeared on screen. "This can't be real," he whispered. Joe copied them and ran them through a map. The location pointed to a small research facility in Nevada, officially listed as inactive. "We're going," Joe said. The next morning, they packed the drives, left the cabin, and began the long drive across state lines. They avoided highways, using burner phones and cash for everything. Andrew filmed parts of the journey, documenting their investigation in real time for evidence. When they arrived near the coordinates, they found a fenced compound guarded by motion sensors and silent cameras. No sign of human activity. Joe scanned the perimeter until he found a side gate slightly ajar. Inside, the walls were covered with faded signs, property of Signal Corp Media Division. Computers sat abandoned under layers of dust, but one system was still humming quietly, connected to a satellite relay. Jamie booted it up. The screen displayed a familiar logo, the same foundation symbol from the widow's documents. A message flashed, "Access denied. Connection live." Before they could react, the system began transmitting something automatically. Streams of data flooded across the screen, showing files labeled with media outlet names, podcast channels, and digital influencers all receiving encoded updates. Joe realized they were watching a live network that shaped narratives across platforms. "They're programming the world in real time," Andrew said in disbelief. Joe's voice was low, and she tried to stop it. Suddenly, the door burst open. 2 men in dark tactical gear entered, shouting for them to step away from the terminals. Joe raised his hands. "We're journalists," he said calmly. "We're documenting the truth." One of the men lowered his weapon slightly. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. "You have no idea what you're involved in." Joe met his eyes. "Then tell me." The man hesitated, then whispered, "She was right. They control everything." Before he could say more, another alarm sounded. Red lights flashed. "They're here," the man said sharply. "You need to leave now." He threw them a flash drive. "Take this, it's the last backup." They ran out through the back exit as vehicles approached the compound. Gunfire erupted in the distance, echoing through the desert night. Joe, Andrew, and Jamie drove without stopping until sunrise. The flash drive clutched in Joe's hand. Once safe, they checked its contents. It contained a folder titled The Blueprint. Inside were detailed schematics explaining how digital content was filtered, categorized, and manipulated before reaching the public. Everything matched what the widow had described. She had uncovered a system that rewrote public perception itself. Joe looked at the rising sun and said quietly, "She died trying to show us this. We're not stopping until the world sees it." And that's how the hunt for the final truth began, not on air, not for fame, but as a silent promise to a woman erased by power. Joe Rogan had become more than a host now. He was a witness to the machinery behind belief itself, and somewhere in that endless network of signals, her voice still lingered, whispering through the static, waiting to be heard again. This story is still developing, and things are getting messier by the hour. Do you think Yandy will really walk away this time, or is there still a chance she'll forgive Mendeecees again? Drop your thoughts below, because the truth might be even wilder than we think. And if you want every new update the second it drops, make sure to hit that subscribe button, tap the bell, and join us here at Glam Real where the drama never sleeps.